We are a part of the Mental Health News Radio Network.
You've tuned in to Rescue the Rescuer, the show that focuses on helping first responders who may be experiencing challenges such as addiction, PTSD, relationship failure, and more. We use stories of struggle and recovery to highlight successful survival strategies for those in this powerfully stressful field of work. And now, here's your host, Steven Kavalkovich.
Hey everyone, this is Steven. Thanks for joining me on the show. I'm a former paramedic in long-term recovery from addiction and post-traumatic stress disorder. I've created this podcast to help others who may be experiencing a story similar to mine find a path beyond their problems and towards a life that they deserve. Before we get started with today's episode, let's hear this short message from one of my supporters. I recently read an article that said 81% of Americans would like to become a published author. Chances are you might be one of them, right? I know I am. So what's stopping us? Writing and publishing a book takes a lot of work, can be a pain, and is expensive too, right? Not anymore. For my next book project, I've teamed up with Hassle-Free Books. They're making it easy for me to become an author. They're removing a lot of the fuss and struggle and making it smooth and simple. And it's far more affordable than you could ever imagine. Go to HassleFreeBooks.com and use promo code RESCUE to receive a 10% discount off any book project. Get started right away and become a published author in as little as 45 days. That's HassleFreeBooks.com. Promo code RESCUE. All right, thanks again for joining me, and let's get started with today's show. Well, everybody, I have a real special guest on our show today. I've invited Kristin Walker, who's the CEO and founder of the Mental Health Radio News Network, onto the show, the network that we're hosted on. And I wanted to bring her on to share a little bit about herself and why she decided to start this network and why it's so important for not just this show, but for every show for you guys to listen to every single one of them, because like she says, well, I'll let her say it, but about mental health and what her standard mantra is on mental health. So I want to introduce you to Kristin. Thanks for being on the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Steve. I'm going to bust your balls for 1 second.
Sure. I love it.
It's Mental Health News Radio.
Oh, I said it the wrong way, didn't I? Man, I was so focused on trying to sound cool, I screwed it up.
It's okay. It makes for great radio.
Nice. Yeah. So, yeah. All right. So, yes. So, what is that thing that you always say on every show about mental health? Who's mental health for? I love it when you say it.
Gotcha, man. Now I'm like, I say it on every show, and so I've completely frozen. Like when someone says, "Add 17 and 12 now," and I'm like, I don't have enough toes or fingers. What are we doing? So a paraphrase of what I say is that all of us at one point in our lives could be diagnosed with a mental health condition. Everybody, every single person on the planet, including the Dalai Lama, or the Pope or whoever, especially the Pope with everything he's got to deal with. So it's not a us and them scenario at all. It's all of us. And if we don't have our mental health, we don't have the ability to have physical health. We don't have the ability to have financial health. We don't have the ability to have spiritual health, because what is running this body that we're walking around in every day? It's largely operated, other than our autonomic, processing. And hopefully some doctor's going to come on and tell you she didn't know how to pronounce that word. But anyway, what are we doing all the time? We're thinking. And if that's hampered in some way, we can't live our fullest, greatest life. So my goal is to eradicate any and all stigma around those two words.
Wow. I love that. And that's the word stigma is become it's become commonplace in our society today. And it's kind of ironic if you think about it, because people talk about the stigma, but that's the exact thing that we don't want it to be. So it's just like a weird paradox to me. So take me back a little bit. I think what the network has been up for about a couple years now, 4 years, I think.
Well, my original show, Mental Health News Radio, has been on the air for 4 years. The network officially started in February of this year. And it just goes to show you how when you're doing a good thing, that what's that movie, Field of Dreams, build it and they will come. I thought when I started it in February, I mean, I had already started researching and everything 6 months into last year. It was mostly around, I don't want to run a network. Why would I want to add more work?
Right, of course.
I mean, forget that noise. But I thought, I am not the only voice out there that wants to talk about issues related to, our well-being. So I'm happy to inspire, and I'm a great cheerleader. So I like to inspire other people. And so I officially became legal as MHNR Network in February. And it's only been since February, and we have 15 shows in varying degrees of production. I thought I would have 3 by the end of this year. So,
wow. Exponential growth. That's amazing. And I'm sure I know it's going to continue to grow.
Yeah, I've got a waiting list of podcasters ready to start, and we've got to be really careful about what voices we want. Who do we, there's a reason why I wanted you to be on our network. I want unique voices, people that are dedicated to this, that advocacy is first and foremost in their heart, not, hey, I'm going to have a podcast and then in 3 months I'm going to be on Sirius Radio and getting 5 million downloads a day. And okay, that you're in a dreamland. You need to go somewhere else. Here is about advocacy.
Yeah, well, and that's an interesting point too, because I got so charged up with the last 6 weeks of pre-production of this show. And once it launched, I had that little pie in the sky vision of, Good Morning America is going to call me on Tuesday. And, I'm going to be on, I guess it's like you kind of think what you're doing is important, and it's a message that needs to be heard. So you kind of get, I kind of get like a little lost in that little dreamland of, it's going to be this huge thing overnight. And that's not true. And that's okay. It's okay for it to not be true, but it
can be true. It's just not going to happen. When people say overnight success, okay, so people are noticing more now. We already were getting noticed, but people are noticing the network website and so on. And they're like, wow, you're just really like an overnight success. And I'm like, no way, man. We're talking hours and hours of interviews. I've done over 450 interviews. That's a lot of interviews to get to this place. So there's no overnight about it. It takes hard work and dedication, and I think it's a little bit easier for me in some ways because I never expected or even thought about anyone listening other than like my family.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. So, keeping it in that small box, like you knew your mom was going to listen.
Right.
And, and I know my mom listens. She just told me the other day, she goes, I listened to your show the other night. I was like, oh, that's so awesome. And I'm like, of course you did. I know. And you said everything was perfect, even if it was the worst thing ever, because you're my mom. So
exactly.
That's the saying like about the overnight success about it. I think about a story I once heard about the old basketball legend, Larry Bird. He was one of the best basketball players that, from what I gather, that's ever walked across the court. And he used to say, everybody sees me at the game. They see me, getting all these scores and all these points, but they don't see me out throwing free throws in my backyard for 5 hours a day. They don't see that.
Right.
Michael Jordan, it's the same thing, or anybody else who's ever really, who is like a master at their game.
Yes.
People don't see the behind the scene. They see the product. They see the end result. And that's just it's kind of another reminder for me that even when I think that things aren't going or things that aren't happening, they are happening. They just may not be as obvious or out in the open. I was on somebody else's actual internet radio show last week, and I shared with them a story that they didn't even believe. They actually sat there on the air and had to like look this up because they didn't believe me.
Oh, share.
Yeah. So I said, what would you rather have? Would you rather have $1 million right now, or would you rather have a penny double the value every day for 30 days? And they said, well, I would take $1 million because that's obvious. I said, no. If you did the penny thing, you'd have over $4 million. And they said, that doesn't make sense. If you take a penny today and you put it in a box, and then tomorrow you double the value to 2, and then the next day you double that value to 4, and then to 8 and 16 and 32 and 64 and 128, and keep going. It doesn't look like much for the first 20 some days because it just doesn't look like it's really adding up. But around, I think it's day 24, 25, now you're up to like 154,000, and then 310,000 and 620,000 and 1.2 million. That's where the growth happens,
right?
In those last days. I mean, it's right. The power of compounding interest. But the biggest, the point in all of that is the consistency, doing the work every day, just like, going to the gym or whatever. Like, we go to the gym, and I've actually been out of the gym this summer because I've just been lazy and I've been focused on this show. So I use that as an excuse to not work on my physical body. But, we go to the gym and we think that, oh, well, I went to the gym all week this week. I should, have lost 10 pounds and my waist should be thinner and I should have more muscle. But that's not how it works.
Right. It's those little tweaks every single day. And there's so many people, especially if you have addictive tendencies. I call, that some people are the second inning player. Some people even make it to the 8th inning, but they're not 9th inning players because they give up. And if you looked at them from a spiritual perspective or just even a scientific perspective on the grand scheme of their life, and you saw how many times this person, you look at a timeline of someone's life and you saw how many times they were 2 feet from what they were working hard for when they gave up.
Yeah. Oh, man. I mean, I think of so many times in my life I did that.
Yeah, we all do.
Because we don't see that, success is right there. Whatever that success is to us, whatever, the mirror, they say, and like even go to the rooms of AA, they say, don't quit before the miracle happens.
Right. Exactly. And that journey, I'm sorry, but it requires you to feel like you're an ass, that you're a dreamer and ridiculous, and that everybody at some point in the journey, everybody's looking at you and going, what an idiot. I mean, it totally requires you to go through all of those phases. And the key is that no matter how much naysaying goes on, most of it from your own head and some of it from the outside world that's just mirroring back what's going on inside of you anyway. That's why it's like you don't have to really get that angry with people that tell you you're whatever, because they're just mirroring back what's going, shouting out loud of you. And, if it's the continuing to do it, even amidst all of that, naysaying that's going on.
Yeah.
I look at careers like, let's take a look at great radio careers, great interviewers out there, Larry King, Charlie Rose. These are people that have been in the business for a long time. They have this long career and they've had ups and downs in their career, but they stayed focused to the craft on bettering their craft, being a better interviewer, just sticking it out through all of the trials and tribulations. And at the end of the day, they're a master at their craft because they kept just plugging away at it. So you either can be someone who, job hops all over the place or whatever it is, or hobby hops. Mm-hmm. You never actually master anything because you don't stick with it. And, and that's what I think you're talking about with like the Michael Jordans and the Charles Barkley, and I'm a horrible sports person, so I'll leave it at that. But people
Yeah, I
that
think they both played hockey or something.
right, exactly. They dunked a hockey puck. I don't know what it is, but
yeah, exactly. We're on that same page. Well, that's and on top of that, I think I even shared with you the other day about the show. This show just hasn't even really been out in the world for a week. It's been just under a week.
Yep.
And within a couple days, I go on social media, I go in all the Facebook groups that are related to this, like, firefighter responders, post-traumatic stress disorder groups. And I post things, I post episodes, and I got some hate, and I was a little shocked, especially because it was somebody that I knew.
Right.
And he's pretty harsh.
Jealous.
Yeah. Well, and he gave me who the heck are you to talk about this stuff? I said, well, what makes you so special? I said, well, nothing makes me special. I never said that, and I don't believe that. Nothing makes me special, but I am uniquely qualified to talk about this because I've sat on both sides of the stretcher. I know what it's like to be in both positions. So yes, I am uniquely qualified to talk about it. That doesn't make me special, and I don't get a medal for it.
Right.
But that does give me the opportunity to share something from experience, because experience sometimes can be the best teacher in the world. Absolutely.
And, I've never had anyone say this to me that I've heard. If it said, I'm really one for not knowing crappy things that people might say about you. So I don't really pay attention to reviews and things like that because, my team does, but I don't, because I just, if you don't hear it, it doesn't exist for you. It doesn't mean I don't listen to critique. I absolutely do. And I have the people that I go to that listen to the show that are psychologists, psychiatrists, best-selling authors and so on. And I ask their advice. And they're people that have run their own businesses. They're people that have done radio before. They're, experts in their field. And I take their advice. And then some of the listeners that I've become friends with, I take their advice too, that have stuck around for 4 years. But I don't listen to kind of, the trolling, nasty, whatever stuff that's out there and people's random jabs that they can have, just because it doesn't help. That doesn't help you. It doesn't, it just, you're already doing more than that person who's giving you the critique, because you're putting yourself on the line, on the air, every time you do a show, and they're not. So how much value does their opinion really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, I think I heard once somebody said that if they don't have a vested interest in your success, why do you care what they think?
Right. Exactly. And, it's always interesting when I will every so often get someone critiquing, even if it's an employee or it's, a friend that's never run their own business that wants to tell me, I'll tell them something sad that went on in my life, a bad decision I made or a mistake, which I don't look at mistakes as something I should beat myself up over. If it's an opportunity to learn how to do something different.
Right. And of course, and that's, it's breaking that mundaneness of, when something new pops up, people are so, we're just so jaded, I think, as a people, as a society. So there's actually a quote out of the AA's big book that says, I think it's at the beginning of one of the first chapters, or at the end of one of the first chapters, it says, basically, to paraphrase, it says there's one thing that'll block anybody from progress, and that's contempt prior to investigation.
Right. Absolutely. And where does that contempt come from? Limited thinking, shame about their own lives and what they aren't doing. It's laziness. Lazy opinions are just always, they're just that. They're lazy opinions. And a lot of times, most of the time, they come from someone who is sadly, very much in shame about the things that they have or haven't done yet with their lives. And they see somebody that's doing something unique. And so they immediately want to shut that down, more because it shines a light on some things that they are afraid to do or challenges that they've run away from. And I don't know, I'll give you an example of a story just for your listeners. This is part of what spearheaded my advocacy. When I was when I was young, my biological father sexually abused me. And I told my mother about it when I was 12, and I was immediately, removed. I saw him every other weekend, so I was immediately removed from having to deal with that. And I needed to talk about it. I needed to, and my part of my healing, along with therapy, because I was put in therapy, like, boom, thank God. And yeah, there's a lot of kids, and I think you've shared, a lot of kids that share what's happened and their parents don't know what to do. They don't listen. They don't necessarily believe their kid. They don't want to deal with it. Well, I was lucky because my mom was totally there for me. So part of my healing was I need to talk about it. Obviously, I have voice. I want to use it. That was part of sort of helping people notice the signs. So when I was 16, even younger than that, I started speaking about sexual abuse. And I remember I was pregnant with my son. So I was 18, and I was doing a talk about childhood sexual abuse. And it was in front of a big room full of doctors and nurses and emergency room workers on the signs that you look for when there aren't bruises, there isn't anything physical going on with a child, but what do you ask them to sort of dig out if there's something psychological going on or sexual abuse that can be so hidden? So I'm giving my speech and I'm telling my story, and a woman gets up from the audience, and this is in the 80s, and this was before it was okay to talk about things like this. Okay, so I started this like when my father was never investigated, but I was. That's just how it was then. So anyway, this woman got up, shook her finger at me. She was enraged, and she was probably in her 40s, probably my age now, and just started pointing a shame finger at me in the midst of my speech. And I am vulnerable. I'm raw. I'm talking about my childhood and something terrible that happened. And this woman was just, how could you say that about your father? You are disgusting. How could you, just everything, you deserved it. I'm sure all this horrible stuff. And even then, now I crumbled later, believe me, and I spent a lot of time in therapy dealing with that, because she hit every wound that every child that suffered sexual abuse has, that you deserve it, that you're the toxic one, blah, 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 all that. She hit every one of those wounds. But during the talk, and this is probably why I'm a good podcaster, I was unflappable. I said, is there anyone in the audience that is a counselor that could come and help this woman? Because even at that age, I knew that this woman was projecting stuff that she hadn't dealt with onto me. So a counselor came over. They asked the counselor and the organizers, because I could tell the organizers, and actually my husband was in the back of the room and he was ready to like charge up and, take somebody out. But, I realized this woman needs counseling. We can't just let her be in her stuff and not have someone catch her. So they ushered her out of the room in a very compassionate way. And I just kept rolling with my speech. Well, 10 years or so later, I was giving a speech for a company that I worked with. I was in front of a bunch of dentists, and I was selling them consulting services or something. And a woman came up to me. She was in her 60s, or I guess it was 20 years later. Good Lord. Anyway, an older woman came up to me, older than me, and said, I don't know if you remember me, but I got up and I shook my finger at you, and I was very upset. And I didn't recognize her because it was forever ago, but I was like, oh my God, what is she going to do now? And she just said, I just wanted to let you know that I'm so sorry. I hadn't dealt with any of the abuse that I'd suffered as a child at the hands of my father and grandfather. And I want to tell you that day I got into counseling, and it saved my life. And we just started crying, and we stayed friends until she passed away. So the point of saying all this rambling story is, even if you are being attacked and it seems like you're being attacked, the very fiber of you is being attacked, it could be a gift if you just try not to let it crush you. I could have let that crush me and stopped speaking, and I didn't. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense. It actually kind of ties into me and my girlfriend were driving back from this benefit for somebody. There's a benefit for somebody we know who has cancer. So we're coming back late last night, and we were just talking about my show and about how I've been getting some hate mail, so to speak. And there was a guy in a group an EMS group, who really attacked me. And she said, well, I wonder what it is that he's not dealing with. And I said, you're right. I said, I think you're right. And that's the thing. What we're talking about, not just on this show, but on this network, we're talking about the things that make people very uncomfortable.
Yes.
And, I don't love making people uncomfortable, but if that is a means for them to step out of their hiding and to actually get better, then I'm going to scream from the tallest mountaintop with the loudest microphone that I can.
Absolutely. Listen, every single person, every podcaster on this network is someone who has struggled with addiction or mental health issues. So none of us are free and clear of anything. None of us have been saints. We've all had problems, but the big differentiator is this. Every single one of us are warriors. We will say the uncomfortable thing. We will buck up against a system that isn't working. We will talk about ourselves openly and from a truthful place, as much truth as we're able to be at this time in our lives, and we put it out there. It's like we all unzip our skin and here are my innards, and that takes bravery. And it also means that you got to be a warrior. You got to have your boundaries and your shields up, because you are going to get some arrows slung at you.
Not only on top of it is it brave, but at least I take from my perspective, from my own, and I speak only for myself, I believe it's my responsibility to do this.
Yes.
Because speaking, it actually makes me tear up a little bit. Thinking about where I was and the pain that I went through, and that's to me actually almost negligible. Right. The pain that I caused everybody else because of what I was going through. I don't ever want to forget that. And if I can help one person to not go down that road, wind up having kids who don't know them, or having, a relationship failure, or a career loss, or total, when I was blackballed in my career field, I was totally blackballed because I had a big black eye, I had a nasty black eye on me.
Right.
And the fact that I was able to survive all that and live through it just tells me that it is my responsibility as someone who was able to stay alive when so many people are dying to these things.
Right.
That I couldn't think of any other thing that I would be doing. They say that pain shared is pain lessened. How would you feel if you had someone to unload your burdens with? Someone who has probably felt how you feel and been in your shoes. Someone who wants to help you to manifest dramatic and lasting change in your life. Not only do I host this show and speak around the country, I also do individual coaching and mentoring. I want to help you to climb out of the hole of isolation, despair, and hardship. Contact me at rescuetherescuer.com to set up your free, no-obligation consultation. I'm confident that together we can develop a plan that is tailor-made to you and your goals and purpose.
Well, I think too, I think about, yes, you want to help be preventative or help someone, prevent going to these places. And that's one thing. And another thing is, what I have heard from you and the things that you talk about and the things that you post, you want someone that is in the same spot you were to know that they're not alone and that they can get out of this. They absolutely can, no matter what they've done. That's the funny thing. Have I told people you can't be in my life anymore that have had problems? Yes, when those problems of theirs were negatively impacting me to a degree that it was, draining my ability to be the best person I can. You have to make those cuts. But do I want any of those people to not get well? Absolutely not. I just want them to get well over there. So there's that. And then there's, the people that you can help and that you extend your hand to and you extend your voice to, and watch them rise and fall and rise and fall and rise. And every time they fall, it's not as deep as it was before. Just like you're going to make mistakes. I make mistakes, but do we go down to the depths of hell like we have been in the past? No.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you said it too about, so they're not alone. The tagline I created for the show was that we heal through connection.
Right.
And, the suffering that happens to us with these issues is all in isolation.
Yes.
But the connection happens, the healing happens through the connection with others who are walking that road and who are, why is it that I even take it back to something I heard years ago about even the church, the early church back in 100 AD, they said one of their standard things was to not ignore the assembly, because the assembly of the people, it wasn't the building, it wasn't the fancy whatever, it was the people. It was the people that are all attempting to go on the same journey together, because we lift each other up, in AA or whatever, any kind of support area. They say when you're having a bad day, you need the meeting, but when you're having a good day, the meeting needs you.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's such a good, exactly.
Because the world's gonna attack. The world's try to take you down, and we have to. Even just with this network, we're all in the same mission. And when one of us is struggling, it's our responsibility to go to the other, to go run to that person and rally around them for whatever it is.
Exactly. Keep on keeping the voice. And if someone needs a break to focus on something, whatever it is, it's just, we're humans, and we have to, always remember that. Don't get so high on yourself and in living in non-reality land, fantasy islands, that you forget that reality is the place that you want to live. And reality is what we talk about on these podcasts. We talk about the human experience, all of us. That's what we're talking about. So if you want to hear about whoever the latest Flava Flav celebrity is, this ain't the podcast network for you.
No, you're not going to hear, this isn't what it is. And now I got to flip the coin a little bit, because we talked about, how the arrows have come and everything like that. One thing that really kind of told me, even though that I know deep down what I'm doing is the right thing, what kind of helped me a little bit more was, I guess it was Thursday, I got a message from a guy in Limerick, Ireland. And I don't, I've never been across the big pond, but, I was like, Ireland, that's cool. He sends me a message and he said, I just listened to all 3 of the shows, or all 4 of the shows, and I'm captivated. It's the greatest thing I've ever heard. And, to that, he said it, to paraphrase it, that's what he said. And he said, and he started sharing his story with me.
Yep.
I don't know this guy from anybody. And he started sharing with me. And he says, I am 100% supporter. I'm going to be a more quiet sharer because of where I work. And it's just not, I have to protect my livelihood. And I said, hey, I get it. Because, of course, I said, please share it. And he was like, I would love to, but I have to be a little bit more covert about it.
That's fine. He can be a great listener and supporter that way. Yeah.
And that's when I said, you know what? That right there told me that this is the right thing. And then another guy who's in upstate New York, this was kind of like another one of those, I don't believe in coincidences. This is one of those like God ordained things that happen. Another guy the other day was a dispatcher, and I've been really contemplating trying to figure out how I can reach dispatchers, because I believe they're really, really forgotten in this field. They're the ones that have to sit at a desk and listen to pain and anguish over the phone and are completely helpless except for to dispatch resources. They can't do anything.
Yep.
and they get forgotten. I mean, I even remember when I worked as a medic, we used to hate on the dispatchers all the time because we would blame them for keeping us busy, which is like ironic in and of itself. But he was a dispatcher, and he wound up, having to walk away from that career due to some issues with mental health. And I said, would you be comfortable coming on the show? Because I didn't even know where to look for one, honestly. And he found me. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna set something up.
It's fantastic. I mean, and that's what makes this exciting. That's what soothes you and is a salve to you on the days when somebody throws some haterade out at you. And I'll have a day where I get a review that I don't like. Somebody says I'm annoying or whatever. I've already talked to you about that. I hate that stuff. But the reality is the same day, it happens every single time, the same day that I get haterade. And this is why I know that there's a bigger force at work out there than me. I'll get this email from somebody out in the tundra in Zimbabwe, just from some odd place, not odd, but just some place that I don't expect, will send me this email saying, I listened to you. Thank you so much. I've been listening for this long. You've kept me alive. You've kept me focused on my self-care, all these things. And I think, okay. So thank you, God, for giving me a dose of keep on keeping on, even though somebody just told me that I suck.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, not to get all religiosity on us, but there's one of my favorite gospel songs of all time. He said that he never promised the cross wouldn't get heavy. That's for sure. Because this is what we're doing. This is a burden. This is a burden of where, what we're doing is, it's a journey, and it's not going to get easy. It's not always going to be easy. It's, if it's easy, I think it's actually, there's something wrong. But another line in that song, he said, that help will always come in time. So like that little spark, that little email, that little message or something like that. That's to me, that's our Creator saying, hey, listen, keep on going.
Well, that, and, listen, I've done this long enough now that I have a nice core audience that listen to, especially the shows where I do get personal. Those are the most popular shows on my program, or when I get all personal, and they know about my ex-husband, and they know about my mom and my son and all that. And so the people that find that annoying to hear all that, well, those are our most popular shows, so I ain't going to stop doing it. But I've been doing it so long that I have had those moments where I've been in an airport and my business card falls out of my purse because I'm digging through a carpet bag to find something, and there's it's like Mary Poppins pulling a lamp out, I
was just thinking that.
So I had a business card fall out. I've had this happen a couple of times, or I've been speaking at an engagement and somebody goes, you sound so familiar. And then they realize, oh my God, you're the one that has been listening to them in their darkest, or they've been listening to you in their darkest hours. And it's your voice that they know so well. And they start quoting things that I've said on my show. And I'm like, damn, I said that. That's good. But those things happen too. And they never make me feel like, oh, I've arrived. They just humble me completely. Because I think someone at an airport, some random stranger, picks up my card and stares at it and looks at me and stares at it and looks at me. Because most people don't know your face. They're listening to you on iTunes.
Right.
And they recognize your voice, and you've meant so much to them on their healing journey that just this well of emotion pops up in them. And I had a guy pull open a book that he had written copious notes on shows I've done, where I was like, wow. And it was such a trip. And it didn't, again, it didn't make me think I'm all that in a bag of chips. It's actually a little uncomfortable, because then I think, oh my God, what show did they listen to? What did I share? Crap. That's what I usually do.
Right. Yeah.
But they just, it meant so much to them that they heard your voice, and they care about you, and they care about your struggles. Because none of us get on here and pretend that we're living a perfect life. I share dumbass mistakes I make all the time. And that's, people resonate with that, again, because it's the human experience. And to me, that's what mental health is about. the human experience. And that's why it should not be a stigma. Is talking about bunion health a stigma? No. Is talking about brain health a stigma? No. So why the hell should mental health be? That's how I look at it.
It's even, like we've been talking about earlier, and, we brought the word up again, stigma. I actually think, what if we change the word stigma to discrimination? Because that's what it really is.
Thank you. Yes, I agree. I've tried that a few times and people go, what?
I mean, it's really no different.
It's true. You're discriminating against me wanting to be mentally well.
Yeah. Oh, it's like, come on. Like, I have a friend, and, I certainly wouldn't mention her name on the air or anything, but she's really had some severe battles with post-traumatic stress disorder, and she got a therapy dog.
Oh,
and I'm so happy to see it. But at the same time, I see some of the stuff she posts on Facebook, and this girl is so brave because she says, she gets hate. Oh my gosh, does she get hate from people?
Really?
Oh, I couldn't believe when I see some of the stuff she writes, that people are judging her. Like, why do you need a therapy dog? You're fine.
Oh man. See, I have to be careful because I like to fancy myself some sort of champion of the disadvantaged or people that are being bullied. And I like ride in on a white horse that I should never put myself on, because who the hell do I think I am? And I'll start, fighting on behalf of somebody. Sometimes that works out well. And sometimes that just really, it's called enabling, and it's not good.
Well, yeah, we know that.
Guilty. And hey, again, I don't have it all figured out. I just get on the air and talk, and I love what I do, and I love the connections I make, and I love inspiring people like you to do this great gift that is advocacy, and because it changes your life. That's the biggest thing. Getting on a mic and sharing your soul and communing with another person in a very focused way, because you're on the air, even if you're pre-recording, and it doesn't matter. That energy that's around that talk right now that you and I are having, as an example, it's a instantaneous hit, like we talked about with my ex-husband, who just had EMS come out and give him that hit, that intravenous sugar, and it woke the sleeping bear up out of his diabetes, or his blood sugar went really low. That's how I look at what we do in terms of our growth. When you get on a mic and you share that time with someone else, it's like you're getting that intravenous hit of human connection in a very focused way, and it wakes you up, and you absorb so much more. You as the host absorb so much more during that session with another person, that your personal internal growth makes leaps and bounds. And so even if you never had more than 10 listeners, the work that you are doing for yourself in terms of your own internal growth is immeasurable.
Well, that is so true. Like I get charged up when I get to have these talks, and it also, I've always been one of those people who, you meet a new love interest, a girl or something, and, oh, what do you like to do? I said, I like to have deep conversation. And sometimes I get a really strange look.
Right. Like, what?
But that's who I am. And
yeah.
Like actually, when we get off the air today, I'm actually driving 3 hours up to see my cousin. Now, she's not my blood related cousin, but you'd swear we were brother and sister. She's like 10 years older than me, and we're like so alike. And honest to God, when I go visit her, one of our favorite things to do is we could sit on the couch from 8 o'clock in the morning until 2 o'clock in the morning for like 15 hours.
Absolutely.
And just freaking talk.
Yep.
And you feel like you've solved like the world's problems in those,
exactly.
Those hours. And that's the power of this. Like, I think you're the same way as I am.
Oh,
like,
God, yes.
We've been talking since we've been speaking our truth ever since we were little kids.
Yep.
And people have been shutting us down, or we've shut
little
ourselves.
Revolutions.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we're like little revolutionaries ever since the beginning.
Oh yeah, I came out feet first. I really did, and my mom's always like, "Honey, you just never freaking stop."
Yeah. And Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, I didn't come out feet first. I was a triplet. I came out last.
Oh, geez.
And I was my brother, my twin now, and we lost one at birth, unfortunately. Those two were identical, and I was the weird one. I was the one that showed up last that didn't look like them, and I was not, I was I was the other one, and I always knew that there was something inside that I had to get out. And now that I found it, like I
can't let it go. It's like I said, you won't care. You just don't care about, you will loosely care about, is it gaining listeners and are people getting something from this or whatever. But if you decided, oh, forget it, I'm not popular enough, or I'm not blah, 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 I'm just not going to do this anymore, man, you would miss it because it's become part of your DNA.
Yes. Well, Bob Dylan once said that if you find something that you get up in the morning and you go to bed at night and you love it, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Exactly. That's why I do this. That's why, I have definitely had people look at my financial picture and go, damn, girl, you made a lot of money last year. You're doing really well this year. Why are you investing 70% of it into this network? And I'm like, what the hell else would I do with it?
Yeah, like I don't need. Yeah. What am I going to do? Buy a Ferrari?
Yeah, I don't care about that kind of stuff. I lived on a commune for a while, and we did all these exercises around letting go of the need for physical stuff, and it worked because I just literally don't. I don't even have the desire to buy stuff. I just don't care. I just don't. I care about this. I mean, this is cool. It's, meeting someone like you and going, oh my God, there's a brother out there and he likes to talk. I love it. And I want to promote what he does. I mean, that's what I care about. So put your money where you get the greatest joy out of having it, because otherwise, what are you going to do? Like stuff means nothing. You don't take it with you. Everybody says that, but it's true. You don't take it with you. You think when I'm, however old I am, when I'm, breathing my last breath, that I'm going to go, damn it, all that money, I should have bought a BMW.
Right.
Hell no.
Well, even they said that there's that joke. They said, well, how much money did Andrew Carnegie leave? Well, he left all of it.
Right. Right.
He didn't take any of it with him.
And so, that's such a good point. Oh, I love that. That's awesome. That's true. I've told my son 100 times, babe, don't expect me to, I'll leave you a legacy if I have one. I'll leave that to you, but you'll have to work your ass off to keep it going. The legacy is not going to be that you go, cha-ching.
Yeah. Well, my son is 9 years old, and he's so funny. A couple weeks ago, he's like talking about these YouTube celebrities, and he said,
"Oh yeah,
this guy makes." Yeah, he said, I've watched some of these videos, and I think it's just the dumbing down of society. But
yes.
that's another episode. He said, I really, this guy makes $200,000 a month on YouTube, and I need that. I said, Matthew, let me tell you something. This is what you need. You need oxygen, you need water, you need food, you need rest, you need shelter. Other than that, it's a want.
Exactly.
You don't need anything else. And, I said that to him about a month and a half ago. And then we had I've been instilling it. I'm divorced, so I see my kids, not nearly as much as I want. So that was that one day. And then a few weeks later, we're celebrating my daughter's birthday. And he said that they were with their mom at eating ice cream or something, talking about all the presents she was going to get. And my son said to his mother, you know what, though? It won't make you happy.
Yeah.
And I started crying. I said, what?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you said that to your mom? I said, yeah. I said, did you tell her I told you that?
I know. I get caught in those.
Because I want to just see her head spin around a couple times.
Right.
She knew what I was like before.
Right.
But it's like, that's the thing. Like, if I can instill in these guys that none of that, I've had all of those. Now, I didn't have the BMWs and the mansions, but I had all the external things. And not a single one of them made me happy.
Right.
They don't bring happiness.
That's so true. And I want to touch on this. I know we're we're probably past time, but I want to touch on one thing really quickly. One of the things that I learned, in speaking of, your ex-wife and hearing something out of your son's mouth and her turning her head, I will say this, and I'm not saying this to say I've done it better than anyone else, because I'm not saying that. I went through hell with my ex-husband. He and I have one child. That's our son, who's 28. And we went through hell. We went through bankruptcy. We went through just all the things you go through when you're a couple. We also had 30 years of his drug addiction to opioids. And there were things that he did and said in the midst of his drug addiction that were horrifying, that I hated him. And I mean, hated him. Okay. I wanted him to get hit by a bus. I'm not kidding. I was so upset about the pain that he caused me, that he caused my child. And this wasn't me misunderstanding someone's intentions. No, this was actual horrific pain that was caused in the midst of his drug addiction. And where we are now, 30 years later, I love this man. This man changed. This man got off of opioids, and he has legitimate, horrific physical pain that he deals with every single day. And we have this amazing relationship now. And when I think back to those times when he was doing all the stuff he was doing, I would have, if someone would have told me that he would be my best friend today, I would have been like, when hell freezes over, because that's where he lives. So I put that out there, that it can seem awful, but I'll tell you the work that I had to do, even though, man, he made it easy for me to blame him for everything.
Oh, of course. Oh,
I mean, God, he did. But talk about a road of looking at my own shit. I mean, because I have a lot of it. Look at my childhood. I had a lot of it. And I really had to take ownership of my own crap and work hard at keeping a relationship with the father of my kid. And he's 15 years ago, I wouldn't have trusted him with anything. And now he's the first person I call when anything goes on in my life. Now, are we back together? No, we're friends and we're family. But I just want to point out to anyone listening, when you're struggling with someone who's in their addiction and you have every right to be just so angry, I'm not telling you how to behave. I'm just saying, give it time. Give it time. You never know how that person is going to grow and change. Some don't, okay? Some don't, and you just walk away and you're done. But some do. And the more we find out that this is a disease, the more, and the more that you yourself, who are a participant in that relationship, go to your own therapy and do your own work, the easier it makes it for you to realize that over time you're going to grow and evolve, and your view of that person's going to change, and hopefully they're going to change as well. And then you can have some measure of peace within those very painful relationships.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's, me and my ex, we get along, and that's good enough right now. And I'm okay with that. I actually just said it the other day when I was at dinner with my parents and my girlfriend that, I haven't had me and my ex-wife haven't had any issues in a little while now. And I don't ever talk bad about her. I may get annoyed at certain things, but that's just people. But I don't ever talk bad about her, because the bottom line is this: she is the mother to my children.
Right.
A. And B, she picked up the slack when I dropped the ball. Not only did I drop the ball, I threw the ball away. And right. She took over everything. And I have to remember that. So even when I get a little annoyed or get upset that things aren't going the way I want them to go, I have to remember that, because I'm the one that caused that. She isn't.
Yeah. And I want people to realize too that Michael didn't say anything bad about me either, but I did about him. It wasn't bad. It was the truth. And how we reconciled that, because later I thought, well, I didn't turn the other cheek. And he goes, honey, you had every right to say all kinds of shit about me. You absolutely did. So it's okay. I wasn't going to say anything bad about you because I knew that you were raising this kid alone and dealing with all of my stuff on top of it. So you needed to be vocal, and you were nothing you said wasn't the truth, and it's okay. That's why I have carte blanche with what I'm allowed to say now, because he's like, people need to, hear this. We're all supposed to be quiet. You're a better person if you don't talk about things that are painful. Screw that. That's how do you get better if you don't speak out and share your voice?
Yeah. Well, I always, that's another thing that I say to everybody, that all this crap dies in the light of exposure.
Yeah.
Otherwise it just grows and grows and grows and eventually kills you one way or the other. So we've had an awesome talk today. It's so great to have you on here. It's so great to have met you, even though we haven't physically met yet. But will. I know that we will. And I feel that I feel really, really close to you, and that's the greatest thing, is that not only did I get to be a part of something way bigger than I could have ever imagined that I was going to be a part of, but I got to get a friend out of that.
Yeah.
To me, that's worth its weight in gold for sure. And I'm going to end it on this. There's a quote that I think is really, really fitting for this network. And I don't know, maybe we could tie it in somewhere. Edmund Burke said that the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing.
I love that. Love it.
So thank you, Kristin.
You're welcome.
For coming on today. It's been a wonderful talk. And, everybody, actually, I'll let you say it because I said it wrong earlier. So
anyone that wants to know about all the shows on our network, they can go to www.mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. We'll see you guys next week. Hey everyone, thanks again for listening. I really hope it'll help you or your loved one. If you get a chance, I really would appreciate it if you could head over to iTunes and Apple Podcasts and leave a review. It will really help me out in many ways. Take care, everyone, and remember, you are not alone in your struggle.
I want to give a big shout out to one of our supporters, the Addictions Academy. The Addictions Academy is the world's foremost accredited trainer of addiction coaches, addiction counselors, interventionists, and international master addiction coaches, offering on-site training at your rehab or facility, live virtual classroom webinars, or on-demand classes covering an extensive availability of courses and certifications. Check them out at theaddictionsacademy.com or call Dr. Callie Estes and her team at 1-800-706-0318.
Thanks for listening to Rescue the Rescuer. For show notes and more, head on over to rescuetherescuer.com.
We are a part of the Mental Health News Radio Network.com. This show is produced by James Healy of RecoveryInnovators.com. If you have a message and want to start a show of your own, contact him and let him know that we sent you.